Hey, welcome to Mike's Trains. So you saw if you saw the last video that I did, it was an overview of this whole thing that's going to happen here. Now we're going to actually start building it, and the only thing I didn't go into was this end over here. And way back in the beginning of all of this train yard, I had said maybe something about putting a tunnel portal in here and then a mountain going up into there. And I think I'm going to do something a little different than that. And I think what I'm going to do is build the ledge here like we had talked about earlier, and then putting a road overpass coming across here and just breaking up between the ledge here and the scenery on the top. So why don't we start with that and get this thing going. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is we're going to use this caulk, and I have that same green foam that I was using earlier, and we have this caulk here that I'm going to use. I use this for almost everything. This is Dynaflex 230. I get this at Home Depot. It's for gutters and windows and stuff. It works great. I love it for almost everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bead right across here. And then maybe we'll run another one like that. And then I already have my pieces cut. So we're going to take this first one and run this in here. I'm just going to bring it back to my line back here. And just make sure we're in the right place. It's a little hard to reach for me right here. Like that. So we just want to squeeze this around and get it right down into the caulk. So that's our first piece. And then we're going to throw on top of that yet another piece. That. Okay, and then our next piece, we'll go right on top of that. Okay, so you can see we've changed our process just a little bit. We went 3 inches high instead of I had originally built it down going that way, and that's so we can do our road overpass all the way down there at the end, heading off the layout, which would point to our town area across the way. So that's how we're going to do that. So now it's just to continue on in this direction and getting all that in place. Alright, so all the foam is in place now. The only thing I want to do at this point is just throw some weights down on it so that everything dries and it's, you know, firmly down into the caulk. So I'm going to start at this end and I'm going to lay a weight right there, and I'll just continue going down along the way with more weights. Alright, so there's all the weights. Everything is fully weighted down. Now we're going to let that sit and dry for, I don't know, it's got to be at least a few hours. I may let that go overnight, and we'll come back and take all that off. And then we'll carve some of this back and get ready to put the rock face on over there. I don't think I'm going to show how to do the rock castings, because I've done a video on that already. If you look back, I'm not sure where, but there is a video on the rock castings. It's much easier if you're looking for that. Go to my website. There's a how-to section. Go to how-to, scenery, and then rock castings is right there. There's a whole video on how to make those if you don't know how, you're not familiar with it. So for right now, we're going to let this dry, and we'll come back to it later, and we'll pull the weights and move on from there. Alright, so it's been probably 24 hours or more. I'm going to pull these weights off, and we can actually see what we've got, and we'll move on to carving up some of this stuff. Okay, so we've got everything off of here. All our weights are gone. Now, I just wanted to show you down at this end down here, I did a little something that I didn't show on video. So right over here, I added an extra bit of foam on the side. So I added this little chunk of foam here, and what's going to happen is I'm going to put a road bridge across here, and that's what's going to cut this off right here so that I can put a backdrop across the top, and then I'm kind of thinking a mirror down in the back to continue the train and the scenery out into wherever. So that's how we're going to deal with that. I'm not going to do a tunnel portal or anything like that. I'm going to do it like that. It's the quickest, easiest way to get through that. And then we'll build this, we'll carve this down and this down and make it slope down into here. Same with on this side. And then our rock faces will come on here and follow this right down. So that's the plan for all of this area. Let's go back to the other side and look over there again. Okay, so over here, this is our far end where our building here is, and the complete other end of the train yard. Now you can see that our foam here overhangs, and we need to cut that back some, and we need to cut some of this back. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these knives. Let's see. Yeah, just one of these with a long blade. That's all I ever use to carve this stuff. And we're going to go back into here, and I'm going to cut this even. And then I think the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this back about, oh, maybe a 1/4 inch, because I have enough room for the trains to pass, which is fine. But I want to have, like over here, over in this area right here. Let's see, can you see where I'm looking? No. So what I want to do is right about here, I have an area right here. I have about a 1/2 inch of space between this back wall and the track, And I want to have the same all the way across, because if you remember, we were talking about adding a loading dock to come from this building over here, and it's going to come right across the front. And that's what would be used to, or at least in my world, what's going to be used to load and unload, let's say, the baggage cars and small freight stuff to come into the train yard, ingoing and outgoing. So what I need to do is trim back some of this foam here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this knife. I only have just a little bit of track showing here, so I want to cut back. I'm going to cut it straight. So I'm just going to cut this across. And then we'll just keep cutting all the way across this, all the way across, until we have it with this same spacing here, because this is going to be part of a loading dock, like I said. So we're just going to keep trimming this back until we have it even, and it's a straight line. And then I'll take a sanding block just to smooth it up a little bit. This foam, when it's all said and done, isn't even going to be seen. So it doesn't have to be great, it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It just needs to be at the right dimension. Now, had I figured this when I was laying in the foam, you know, I would have cut that accordingly, but you know, that's part of figuring this out. For me anyway, that's how the planning process works. And you know, I have to go as I visualize it, and that's kind of how I do things. So we'll just keep doing this. So this is kind of what we're looking for. So we're good all back here. And yes, this is carved at an angle back here, but not really going to sweat those things at all. This is all going to be covered by something else. Now I just need to get this little area in here. I probably should change the blade, but you get the idea of this is how we need to do this. So now, I don't know, let me see if I can get this a little closer. Now you can kind of see the spacing I have all down through here, between the track here and the back wall here. Now, the thing I'm using to create this concrete wall here is only an 1/8 inch thick, so we want to cut this, so I want to have about 1/4 of an inch. I've got probably a 1/2 inch here. Should be perfect to get this wall put in here. Like I said, I'm a little short up here, right in here, and that's not a big deal. We'll just continue cutting until I get that right. Now we'll go back onto the other side. I'll come back and finish this off later. Okay, so now let's take a look at this area. So you can see we've got things, and they're really not right as far as the parts that are hanging over other parts and things sticking out here or there. Not going to sweat that at all. Same process as before. What I'm going to do is, see, we need rock face to come through here. Now this is almost right up at the track level, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top one and bring it out like this and carve it out this way, like that. And then we'll take this one, same thing, and bring it out here. And then we can pull that out as well. And now we have our full face. Now, because this is going to be a plastered rock face, I don't want to put big curves into this. We want to keep this relatively straight because, you know, plaster castings don't bend. So we want to keep this kind of straight. Like that. And that's all we're looking to do right here. And then this, I'm just going to carve this a little bit over here. We want to keep everything as even as possible. You want to have straight up and down. You want this to, so that we can put a rock casting and glue it to the bottom and the top right here. And then the only other thing I want to do is there's only a small space here. I want to enlarge that some. So I'm just like we did the other side. We're going to make this a little bit bigger through here. And there we go. Now I have more than enough room. I have more than enough room to pass my my rock faces through here. And that's all we're really looking for. So now we have the room to get our stuff through there, as you can see. And you know, I am taking care to cut these as even as possible. But if they're not even, it's not a huge deal. So now at this point, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wooden block with a piece of sandpaper wrapped around it to make this an even transition from the one area to the other. And that's all it takes. And I'll do the same throughout the rest of the area, just to kind of make things a little more even, so that when I glue on the rock faces, so we took the sandpaper back there, and you can see kind of where I took the the edge off of the curve back here, and I'll go through this a little more, you know, off camera actually, just because it's easier for me to do this off camera, but I'm just showing you the process that I go through to do this. Now there are other ways to cut that foam. I personally, I like the carving effect. I like using the long knife like this. But there are other things you can do. They sell hot wire knives that cut this apparently really well. I've never used one, but I hear they work really well. You know, steak knives, whatever you can get your hand on that cuts that stuff. It's all you really need. So that's the process of the foam, and the only thing beyond that now, next step is going to be to do the rock castings on top of that, and then we'll start working with Sculpt-A-Mold. But I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to end the video here, and we'll call it a day. So until next time, happy modeling.